Okay, welcome to another episode of our show on Community Television Africa, where we focus on art, philosophy, but mostly art through literature, painting, photography, music, as is expressed by musicians,
That's
artists, painters, and people who express themselves from the diaspora, and also anybody else, anybody who's human. So today I'm here with it's a special honor to be here with Angelo, who's in what part of are you in Mpumalanga?
currently I'm in Gauteng,
Gauteng. Okay, Gauteng.
Johannesburg.
Okay, okay. So what are you doing in Gauteng now? Are you originally from Mpumalanga? I think I got it mixed up. Yeah.
Yeah, so I am living, as in I grew up in Mpumalanga, Standerton, and also Falkirk. And then for school, I moved to Johannesburg around
Okay.
2021.
Okay. So Angelo is and I always he reminds me of Michelangelo too. Actually, some of your like the self portraits you took with some of the patterns in the back remind me of some of those ancient things from the Renaissance that have that sort of flair. Anyway, he's an extreme sports. You're an extreme sports aficionado, but also a very talented visual artist. Can you tell us about some of the visual work that you do?
Oh yes, thank you very much. So the visual works that I have been more interested in is more pattern based and
Yeah.
including patterns in my artworks. So I find a way to mix the two, like let's say when it comes to a little bit of realism, but include a pattern way of expressing this realist life
Yeah.
or picture.
Yeah, I've noticed that. So you have patterns. So like it seems like in nature you're sort of a designer. Now you have a background in graphic design, if I'm correct. Do you have a background in graphic design?
Yes, yes. Graphic design was one of the fields that I discovered when I first started my school career.
Yeah,
Um, so it first was illustration, but then I later on discovered that, oh, actually, I can then take some of the works that I've done, especially my patterns, and then convert them to graphic designs.
yeah, yeah,
And I think yeah, that has been where I'm at. But as far as school wise, I do try to explore the fields of animation and also maybe videography and
yeah, yeah.
stuff like.
Yeah. And I've seen so like you do like you said you do graphic design and you put some of your patterns in there. But as you said, I think your identity as an artist, from what I've seen, is that very good use of patterns, but also with color. So you, as far as I'm concerned, you're a painter, and then you're also very good at design and identifying patterns, as opposed to a lot of artists who may use figuration. So figuration is not your main focus. But what I've seen with your patterns and the way you use colors, that it taps into some sort of abstract energy, which doesn't have to be representative. Like a lot of people say that art has to be invisible and it has to represent something else. Like maybe if you have a picture of a woman as an angel, that represents some sort of thing about the nature of the woman. But it seems like yours go, they still deal with the human psyche, but they go into the level of aesthetics and design and pattern, which, as far as I'm concerned, it 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 not only invokes the invisible, it invokes the invisible because it's abstract rather than invoking like real life scenes. Like you said, you did mention that you're interested in practical realism, but even aside from realism, it seems that a lot of your work is psychologically stimulated, and then it tends to activate people. So there's like a lot of energy. I think I spoke with you before and said that it sort of brings hype. Now, when you take your designs and the way you use colors and stuff, and you now add them to sort of like the self portrait you had with the skateboarding, that energy now men's now blends with the figuration. So the figuration would be like an image of yourself. Then you have a sort of background which is sort of sublime and has a sort of glow. So it reminds me a little bit more of some of the work people did in the Renaissance era, where they would use design and patterns and colors to create sacred images of saints. So like maybe the work you did, to me, it depicts you as a saint, or if you did portraits of other people. So would you like to speak to a little bit to your identity as an artist and what you're trying to do with your patterns and what you're trying to do when you also combine your patterns with traditional symbols or images of other people or images of metaphors and things. Yeah.
Oh yes. So as far as my interpretations,
Yeah.
I try to at least visualize the world in patterns. I've seen life just happens in patterns, and so I
Yeah.
want to encapsulate that intention, that actually know, as much as everything seems so surface based, or you seeing things from a surface, but it's actually some sort of repetitions which creates this harmony called life. And I think I want to be able to make my patterns that it's distinctive from any others. And it's a
Okay.
journey I'm going through, but I feel as if I can make it seem to have this connection with the subject matter of the painting or drawing that I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the patterns may vary, but it to me it speaks to the subject matter, and that's what I want to at least put out to
Yeah.
the world for people to
Okay.
see.
So let's start with your really abstract stuff, which are patterns there, and you've got colors and they're geometric. A lot of those times, what do you think? And because I think there's could be a tension there that some would say, okay, well, maybe there's not a subject for that, and it's purely. I would say for me, I won't say what I think the subject is, but if you have a pattern or you have like some patterns, sort of like what you see with textiles, what's the subject matter for that? Because I think it's clearer what the subject matter is when you do portraits or when you do like something that's referencing the real physical world. But when you're just doing sort of like geometric, what would you say some of those subjects are when you do that? Because you do a lot of work that's geometric and very colorful, and it's very powerful. So I'm just trying to locate what the subject is to try to figure out why the effect is so powerful, especially some of the ones that I've seen you do. Yeah.
So I would say it's very ambiguous. I
Yeah, you
tend
talked about
to also leave it to the viewer. Most of the time, I experiment in seeing how people view my art. But
it.
essentially, for me, it stems from a place where I see growth. And for me, anytime that I make a pattern inspired art, I just think that, okay, this is a stem from maybe just a seed. To me, I think of that okay, this has to be something that grows. So for me, patterns really like put out that growth factor in my art.
Yeah, and because I've seen some of the work you do. Like, okay, here's one right here. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it looks like waves, and there's blue and orange and so waves. So the first thing that comes to me here is sort of like it looks a little bit like waves, the ocean, and maybe like some astral stuff, like with the dots, maybe in outer space or whatever. But it's very powerful. And it reminds me of some of the work they do in places like, can you see it? Australia or New Zealand. Let me see what else. It's the one where you say from Angelo Key for real, from orc based to acrylic to swatches is the evolution. I continuously adapt to digital, evolving my work to graphic. It's a great gradual process. I don't know if you can see the one I'm talking about. Can you see it very well?
Oh yes, yes,
Yeah.
I can tell that one.
Yeah, this one, yes. So this is very interesting. So now you mentioned before that it starts off as a seed, and I agree. So what it seems to me is that as an artist or someone who's doing a spiritual practice, that seed itself is rooted in the soul. So whatever the subject matter is, that's what it is. But for that specific one, what inspired you? Was it reference to some other patterns you've seen before, or was it sort of like a vision? What inspired that image?
So quite interesting. That image came very random. It was
Yeah.
actually one
You're
of the first.
demystifying art. Sometimes I've seen. Sorry to confront. I've seen painters who will just start scribbling on the wall or sketching. Then all of a sudden something jumps out of the paper. So yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Yes. So, but very interestingly, it actually was what got me my spark back and actually made me realize more that, hey, actually, there's something to these patterns because, yes, it just comes random, but it actually tells something about me. And I then took that inspiration to then go deeper into the art. And
Yeah.
as I've said that, I then moved it into graphic design. And I think, but before that, I can even go into graphic design. For me, I was just interpreting a flow state, which kind of also made it into, these interpretations that maybe it could be, some little stars here. And I've had that one sort of interpretation up with my friends actually. And they said, wait. Actually, this looks like it's the sky. This looks like it's the
That's what I was saying. It looks
galaxy.
like waves, guys, astro too, and that's where the ambiguity comes in. But sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So
To me,
yes,
it looks a lot of like waves, especially the blue part, because it has that wavy shape. So it looks like waves in the ocean too. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. So I think it then goes to this ambiguity that actually it is a subconscious thing that I leave to the viewer to
Yeah.
interpret for themselves.
Yeah.
But I find similar meanings to what I wanted and what they also resonate or intend to give meaning to it.
Yeah. And this goes sort of like faith. You know, they talk about in the Bible, faith is the substance of things not seen, and we have no evidence of. So I have the faith that whatever you're doing is something that will resonate to people who are on the same wavelength. As far as I'm concerned, human beings, I believe we're all. A lot of us have this wavelength, but some of us are not connected to it. So, for example, you might see a businessman who looks at it and say, "I don't understand it." It's just because that person's not in touch with their deeper self. So, I think a lot of what you're doing here is something that's rooted in before you were born, because the psyche, the human psyche, and intuition is timeless. And so these are images that are coming from you, not so much as you creating them. It's just that sort of like you're the medium. But when I see that one that you did, you start to use those elements in other ones, like the one where you same type of elements, different colors. Where you wrote skateboard here.
Oh yes.
That's a
So
variation of that other pattern, as far as I'm concerned. Did that one come before or after? Yeah.
so that one actually came before
Yeah.
the one that is
Yeah.
digitally made.
Yeah.
And essentially the skateboarding name that you see there is a skateboarding brand that I've been a part of with a few of my close friends.
Yeah. You have to give
And
them a shout out. What's the name? Yeah.
it's Unfamiliar Skateboarding, Unfam Skateboarding Standarton on Facebook. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So as we were saying, that came before. So even though the one that's digital, I can see that one is sort of like an answer, is like a sort of precedent before the other one follows. And you can see the sort of like, because it's very similar. Now when you did do it digitally, did you have to do sketches before you do the digital part, or to get for? I don't know much about technology or how it works. How did you reproduce it digitally? Yeah, I mean, the one.
Um, so
Yeah.
so
Go ahead.
um I essentially just took a picture of it and then
Yeah.
went into Adobe Illustrator,
Yeah.
and I then followed the strokes with the lines,
Okay.
and I chose a different color palette from the one that is original.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Oh,
basically
and
I just
I see that it's the same. It's almost identical in design, except for I think you have the skateboard written in the middle, but it's a similar. It's not exactly the same, but I can see that that one is like a template for it. Yeah, I can see. Yeah.
yes, yes,
So I
yes,
guess what I
yes.
should be asking you is what inspired this first illustration, and you're basically saying that what inspired it was a seed. It's something that's already in you, as you said, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let me ask you a question. Before, because a lot of people say that someone has a seed or someone has a vision or whatever. But I think that before that happened, you must have already had the intention for being an artist, and you must have already been drawing and stuff earlier. So can you give me your history of when you first started to visualize patterns? Because you say you like patterns. You first started to making you not just being interested in patterns, but actually drawing and bringing them into visualization, and realize that you wanted to do something with patterns, whether we call it art or design or whatever. Give us your history on that briefly, a brief history of Angelo. Yeah. So give me your
Okay,
background.
okay.
Yeah.
So my background, I would say as far as art related stuff, I was my first sight of the world that I can at least remember as a everyday life is was in a nurse's home, and this nurse's home had art on the walls. And for me, at a young age, seeing that, it was just like, wow, actually, I see all these animals, I see all these grass roots, and I see all of these, amazing works that they did in that place. And subconsciously, I think that stuck with me because I remember at least about grade one, I was already interested in drawing and, doing these figures and doing maybe side views. And I think later then when I got to maybe grade four, that's when I saw the potential of, okay, maybe I love this to the point where I want to be doing it for at least some time in my life.
Yeah,
And then throughout my high school years, I was heavy into graffiti and um, I got into a bit of realism, doing portraits, still lives with the pencil. But
yeah,
between classes and, when the teacher's just talking there and, you just want to get something out of your head, these patterns
yeah,
came along. And
yeah,
then I realized that I'm actually very quite consistent with them as I grown throughout. And then I think then in when I left high school, the only for me, the only original thing that I could get out of was that patterns. And, you know, as much as I was doing the graffiti and I was doing the realism, trying,
yeah,
to do the hyper realistic drawings, but
yeah,
I think the patterns to me really stood out that, hey, actually, this is something that came deep inside me, not just something that maybe people were like, oh, I see you can draw. Can you draw me? So,
yeah. And and
yeah,
and this goes to African art because we have when you look well, back in the day, I'm from Nigeria, but back in the day, whether you're Nigeria, Zulu, or whatever, or Kosa or whatever, they don't call it art. It's considered a spiritual activity. But you have, to me, there's two branches at least. There are people who make sculptures, which deals with realism, the human face and everything. Then there are people who do more like textiles and things like that. So it seems like you're more towards the pattern based than just the figuration. And I mean, they're part of the same spectrum. It's spiritual activity. They don't call it art. Part one of it is, and it has a function. So when you're doing, so if you were living, let's say, 500 years ago, what you would be
yeah.
doing would be based on patterns and designs which have some sort of spiritual significance. What someone like Picasso would be doing is he would be doing sculptures and stuff, which also is a spiritual activity. They wouldn't call it art, but the reason we call it art is because it's using physical medium to bring about the invisible. So you're bringing out the invisible, but it's a lot more mathematical than what people who do figuration. But it's more than just mathematics because I know you said it's patterns, but it's also design. So you also have design with it, which is an aesthetic thing. So I think that it's interesting to see that because you're saying that you went at first you're like, well, I can't be the hyper realist, I can't do this. So it looks like your calling is something that has to do with not just patterns, but also um, shapes. Also, you're still involving shapes. That makes you an artist. So it's very abstract, very mathematical, but at the same time beautiful also because you have lines, you have curvature, you have lines in some of your designs, and the way you use color as a painter. It's just that the topic is a little bit different from just figurative arts. What are your thoughts so far on what I've said, and what you think so far is about art, especially coming from a perspective of being someone who's from Africa? Yeah,
Oh, yes. Actually, I first didn't see the correlation between the patterns that I like to make and the patterns that have been present in
yeah,
the history of Africa. But as soon as I picked that up, I then realized that, okay, I think I'm actually getting to something more deeper now. I'm not
Yeah,
just
yeah,
doing fun and art, but then I think I missed the real spark or that deep intention, because when I look at these African patterns and all of these amazing designs that I've done, example like the Ndebeles, I
yeah,
realized
yeah,
that it's a encoded message, it's not just random shapes, it's actually a very it's sort of like they have its own encryption and messaging.
yeah.
And
Hmm.
I think for me, it made me want to go deeper into not just making random shapes, but to actually find a way to communicate with the viewer and
Yeah.
have it more of a design rather than just,
Yeah.
random patterns.
I know what you mean. And then that design part is the part that we have to learn. Where, because so for example, you mentioned that you notice that a lot of the African patterns and designs are stuff that you're doing. So my argument would be is that you're at, if you look at the spiritual aspect of yourself, you're a mental being mind. It's actually the same visionary that was doing those things back in the day. So, for example, with the way we use rhythm and patterns, even now, it's still the same as our ancestors because it's the same encoding. It's within the DNA. So basically, it's within the DNA. But what you were mentioning about design, so that's where art comes in, is where you take whatever raw skill you have and then you now expand it for art, because that's I think that's the next level for art. You have the talent, or let's say I want to be an artist, I'm a poet. I have the talent, I have it encoded in me with these designs and patterns. But now I have to look at the real world, study the real world, study perspective and things, and figure out how to make it more relevant to the modern era. So let's go back to the that image that you showed us that you said came from a seed. Now I still see some of the same types of shapes in this one with it, especially the part that's red. It's same types of shapes that we saw in the earlier one that you said came from a seed. Can you see it clearly? Yeah, yeah. And
Oh, yes, yes.
it's in the background of the skyscrapers. Is that supposed to be Josie or somewhere? Where are those buildings supposed to be?
So those buildings are in Commissioner Street,
I
just
remember that near
yes,
Bramford.
just before, yeah, just before that big tower,
Yeah,
the Transnet Tower.
yeah.
Yeah.
I used to
So
hang out there sometimes and get in trouble.
okay, okay. No, it's a great area.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I think they have
so
some areas there where people write on the walls and stuff like that too, and write things down and graffiti and stuff. They have some areas near there where people write sort of like Basquiat. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
oh yes, yes, yes. I've seen quite a
Yeah,
few. Um, but yeah, so with that drawing, or I mean that digital art,
yeah,
um it actually came from a view from my window, and I was looking at how I'm at the center of this, buzzing place or the
yeah,
city. And I felt like as if I can grow from it, as much as I see a concrete jungle, but
yeah,
especially at that time that I took it, it was in a period of summer. So I saw the trees grow. I saw the way that the light of the day changes, especially around sunset. And
yeah,
those colors represent that actually it's so vibrant, and it's
yeah,
sort of like life is growing from the city. And I wanted to encapsulate that as much as the buildings are, so structured and static and,
yeah,
so rigid, but there's this vibrancy in the air, that there's this
yeah.
just, growing aspect of things now. And I think that's what I wanted to put
Yeah, and
across
I
in
get
that.
that. I get that because the shape of these things, it's almost like a blooming of a floral arrangement over the buildings. So I look at that as a blossoming, as a sort of a symbol for creativity and I've been to that area before. I used to hang out there when I went to Vits, and I get what you're saying. There's like a lot of creative people who are there at times. So that's a very very good one. Now here's another one where once again you're using some of the same types of shapes. The one where you have the clouds and the sun and the trees, but each one of those things has the same basic sort of shape and curvature and lines. That's a better word. And once again, very good use of vivid colors. Can you speak to that? This one, what inspired that, or what's this about? Also,
Oh, that one. I would say that one is one of my personal favorites.
yeah,
And it also was created in the time of summer. And when I looked around me, as I said, like all I see is just patterns. And I wondered, hey, when am I actually going to start really interpreting this real life things with patterns? And it
yeah,
was a experimentation, but I was able to then interpret the sun as in its rays are actually, giving off these continuous light rays,
yeah,
and the clouds, you know very present in our lives. But you know so essentially I just wanted to make a realistic object, but in this
yeah,
simplified and pattern like way.
yeah.
And
And none of
interesting
that.
enough,
Go ahead. Sorry, you said interesting. Yeah,
yes, interesting enough, we are actually studying one of some artists in a post-impressionist period,
okay,
where they also were growing away from the realistic and naturalistic perspective,
yeah,
and they started using more of like patterns into
yeah,
their
yeah,
drawings. And I think now I see that, okay, maybe that was what I was going through, but now I see that, okay, I can now then start to explore more into it.
yeah. And I would say maybe I'm wrong. I'll even say you're doing it in reverse. You might have been in pure pattern and stuff, and now you want to move towards more realistic. And then people who are more realistic want to move. And I hear that with so many artists that either their work is
Mhm.
so abstract and they want it to become more figurative, and then figurative guys want to go from figurative to abstract. But there's a middle ground where you now realize that in reality, just like when you have the sun, in reality, energy is a spectrum which can go from pure abstract to concrete physical, and then the artist finds sort of like a middle ground. I mean, I'm going on a tangent, but I've heard so many artists say something similar to what you say, where they have to make that shift away. Because you mentioned that a lot of guys from realism want to go more towards those patterns, but I've seen some other guys who do like pure pattern design, so they wanted to move towards. Then I've seen people who do not so much patterns, but they do very abstract work. But they said they wanted their work to look more like concrete physical things that we see. And I've seen people who make concrete physical things who want to go there, and some who want to go to the point at which physical matter starts to fall apart. And they think that's when, once it starts to fall apart, that's when it's becoming abstract. And then when from the abstract, once it starts to come together, eventually it becomes physical. So there's sort of like a middle ground for energy. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, or if you have an idea of what I'm
Oh,
saying.
yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, yes.
yeah,
I see it. I see it a lot, especially with the artists that I am in close proximity with, and those that I also follow on social platforms,
yeah,
that it's this constant battle that you want to challenge yourself, but you do not want to leave or feel
your
as if
core.
you are battling this core part of yourself.
Yeah,
And most of them, or including myself, they we sort of try to give in to the part where we sort of just abandon, or just tighten our own little thing in the corner to do
yeah,
the things that other people want. And so interesting, I also learned this very recent that Michelangelo,
yeah.
he didn't really desired to do the paintings of that
Era.
chapel.
Chapel. Oh, you mean
Yes,
the Sistine Chapel? He had to do it for money for his overlord or somebody. Go ahead. Yeah, yeah,
yes. And it was just so fascinating to realize that all that amazing work that today we even study at school, and it goes back to that, well, he has the skill, it's not like he can't, so he did it, but essentially he probably wanted to do something way different.
Yeah,
So
I
I
think what he
guess,
wanted to do was carve. That guy's sculpture is unbelievable, man. It's especially the one with David and the one with Mary holding the child. That shit. When I look at that stuff, I realize that human beings have moved backwards. We've devolved. I don't know if anybody can do that type of work anymore. What are your thoughts? Yeah.
yeah, no, we are also very, very baffled when we study these structures or sculptures or paintings.
Yeah.
But essentially, I think many artists do have the skills to do realistic or
Yeah.
abstract or
Yeah.
have that or even play with the ambiguity so that it's not just maybe left
Yeah.
to the viewer, but the artist intends to, or maybe it's just a mix of the two. But I really do think that artists they sort of just put their like real personal work and do the work that is
Yeah.
commissioned and stuff.
And I agree, and I think it's very difficult to balance that out. But also, I will say that guys like Michelangelo and Da Vinci and these guys also they lived in a different economic system. They could focus on these things, just like African art. When you look at sculpting from Nigeria, the Benin mask, those were people who were able to do thousands of hours focused on it. Now we have to go to school. We have to worry about getting airtime, family. We don't have the same energy to focus because we're living in a capitalist world, which doesn't value spiritual activity. So, like you said, we all have that ability to do that, but we don't have the same amount of energy because the society and the culture has lost its sense of spirituality. I'm not speaking about Christianity or Islam, but even back then, like Michelangelo was Christian. Uh, Spirituality, whatever form it comes, it was the main driver for the whole culture. Now it looks like the main driver for the whole culture now is money, and we've got other things like internet and things. We have so many distractions, which are making it very difficult for individuals. Like you said, put your work on the side and do others. Back then, those guys were so skilled that they could do both very well because they had, like Michelangelo had benefactors who paid him money so that all he had to do all day was work on art. Whereas now you can work on art, but you have to do other things. I have to go to work. That's why our show hasn't been able to come on for weeks because we plan to do this for weeks. But I have work, I have this, I have that. I wish I could just sit down in a room 12 hours a day and work on what I'm passionate about. Then I would have the energy to do, like you said, do works, commissions for others, and do what I find interesting also. But let's move on to the last one because we're running out of time. But we're going to be back several weeks from now. Let's go to the last one, which is one of my favorites of yours, the one that you did, the mural of your, I call it a mural of yourself, where you have
Oh,
design and you're standing there. So this one is the one that reminds me of work from the Renaissance era. It's very beautiful, and it's not beautiful. Beautiful is not the word, but it's sublime. There's a level of it's almost like listening to Bach's classical music. There's something, and it seems to have sort of like a religious energy in it, sort of like the Catholic saints. Can you speak to this one? Yeah.
oh yes. So this one was a collaboration actually.
Okay.
It was not only just my work. So it was a collaboration with a friend of mine called LSKM,
Okay.
made by LSKM. And essentially, when we were working on it, we were shooting for sort of like a skate action photo. But then
Okay.
we realized that we do not want to focus too much on the action and the extreme parts, but find sort of this innocence in it, this
Yeah.
innocence in the sports. And so I think with one of the pictures that he took, he then saw that, okay, this one looks a little more innocent. And with his understanding of my interest in patterns, he then found these patterns that he can use in the background, and it came to what it is now. But essentially, we just wanted to make something that is about a action sport, but doesn't have that, action in it,
It seemed
to
like you've
present.
uplifted it to the sacred. Like I don't know if you watch football. Do you remember Maradona? He has an image like that. It's not just action. This guy is a saint. And whenever you think about saints and stuff, it's more than action because it's suspended in time. You get what I'm trying to say? It reminds me a little bit of like some of the images. They have a picture of Maradona with the sun behind him. and the rays coming out. So that's a very nice one. Yeah, sorry, continue. Sorry to cut in front of you. Yeah, yeah,
Yes, no, so essentially we just wanted to have that moment where we also as creators are, not just being one-sided to the sports, but finding a different perspective towards
yeah.
this. And I think he also might have went with the fact that my name kind of says a little bit, not saying that I am fully innocent, but
Well,
um I
Angel, you
think
seem like an innocent person to me, clean cut. You're not here drinking beer like me in public here. I'm kidding. Maybe you got a
no,
blunt.
no, no.
I'm just kidding.
That's no offense. I mean, we all have our traits and you
Our
know,
vices.
but yeah, I think he just wanted to have that thing that, oh, Angelo, he is,
Yeah, and then even the
he
hands are like they're almost like in prayer, like this. Crazy, man. Yeah,
yes, exactly. And I'm not gonna lie, I probably was posing that off guard, and he took it off
yeah.
guard without
But
meaning
I see
to
the
say.
connections, like you say. Would say maybe it's like a thing the spirit decided to bring that day because it's so uncanny because that's how the saints do in their pictures too. So if you did it off guard, that means it's something special. That pose itself may be a natural pose for because you see like in India where people do namaste, there are certain gestures which are natural to humans. But yeah, we're getting onto another topic though. Sorry. So yeah, last few words from you though. Yeah.
Yes. So yes, I think just in general, looking back at my work, I would say that I want to see a growth in life, I want to actually just encapsulate daily life so that people can see that it's not too far to reach. And as
Yeah.
much as we have symbols and all of that, but I think just in the natural world, we can find so much meaning to these complex things that we are going through in life.
Yeah.
And that's just what I want to do for at least till I live and die.
Yeah, and I agree with you. So so to close for what I think, you start off by talking about identifying patterns and saying, "Oh, I have to connect to reality." But now you do all three patterns. Focus on reality, but then also focus on the experience of life in general. And when you add everything, the colors, the patterns, the designs, and everything together, it sort of uplifts the human experience and the things we do and gives it the touch of art, which could be, like I said, it could be the sacred, it could be the sublime. It seems like that's where you tend to go. Some people, it's irony, it's whatever, but it seems like there's some sort of way you want to uplift the reality that you see. And that involves a lot of things, recognition of patterns, an aesthetic touch with colors and things, and also the reference. Like for example, in that one where with the skateboards, the reference was the sport itself. So that's what I see with the work that you're doing. So it's going to be interesting to see as you keep on developing whatever works you'll be doing, and you're going to be coming on our show hopefully once or twice a month. It just depends on my work schedule. Like hopefully you can come back next month. Yeah, this is August. I'm forgetting. I'm losing track of time. In September, and we won't just be talking about your art. We'll be talking about art in general and a lot of things because we spoke a little bit about ambiguity, but we don't have enough time to go deeper. So we can talk more about how ambiguity comes, especially from repetition and variation, because you do a lot of repetition of patterns. When you do that enough, that's when the ambiguity starts to come out. Because then we'll start to see that just about anything you can imagine about that you could say about one thing, it's connected to the other thing. Because that's basically pattern. People who identify patterns see how we're all connected and we're all the same, just in different variations. What are your thoughts before we head out? Yeah.
My thoughts before I head out, I just want to say thank you very much for allowing this to happen.
Oh yeah.
Um, I cannot have a lot to say, but I just
Me
want
too. That's why I
to
pass it off to you. And I didn't have it. No, but on the real, but to be honest with you,
Oh,
this is good because, and we didn't plan like I was like we need to sit down and write a template for the show. The show we just did now was totally improvised, which is beautiful. Because I was like, oh, it's not time to do it. I need to send you interviews and all that. But everything came out and it was real. So we're gonna continue doing this. So have a blessed day. Oh, I was gonna ask you. So yeah, what are you doing right now? Are you still in school or working or chilling? Yeah.
so right now I am completing my final semester. So it's the
Oh,
last leg of my qualification, which
okay.
is arts and design.
Yeah.
And it's a bit pressure, but I am feeding off it and I'm enjoying it. And yes, that's what I'm currently doing right now.
Okay, so good luck to you, my good friend. But we'll still be keeping in touch because you know me, I'll be texting you on Instagram and and I'll see you looking at some of my crazy videos that I put online. Have a good one.
Yes,
Thank you.
those
It's a very
videos
big
are
blessing.
awesome.
I know it's a very big blessing because I saw you when I played some stuff from Lazy Hound. I was like, hey man, you got to come on our show. So to me, that's a big blessing. So we'll be back for more next month. Thank you very much, and we'll have a good day. Study hard, get your qualities. Okay, thank you. Okay,
Thank you very much. Definitely will.
bye bye.